We are back. I know you missed us. It's another episode of Advice from the Heart. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank, and I am joined by the one, the only great-looking glasses dude, Christopher Hart. How you doing,
Thank
sir?
you. Thank you. Thank you. I've seen your glasses, so I had to up level mine.
I don't even know where you are anymore. You've got a blurred background.
I'm hating it so hard.
So speaking of blurred background and privacy, which leads right into the topic of today's segment, we are talking all about data collection, first party data, second party data, third party data, and why it's becoming a fourth party data, why it's becoming really, really tricky in 2022. You and I were just talking about this. You've been looking into this. Businesses are running into a data problem right now. What's the current landscape from your perspective?
Well, complicated, very complicated, right? More complicated than it's ever been, right? If we look at our current environment, taking a step sideways, right? Paid modeling or paid, PPC or other paid advertisement is decreed. We have economic constriction occurring, right? So less and less information is going into a thing, right? And that's, the less information in there, the less modeling is coming out of that, right?
Yep.
Also, there's an acceleration of how do we not collect, individual data and share that data privacy and all that. I mean, we all have 1,000,000,001 cookie settings I don't know about you, but whenever I get that thing, I'm always like, turn everything off except but necessary cookies, right?
Well, there's the platforms are getting really into, obviously Apple, already in their latest iOS has reduced any sort of visibility. Google's been talking about it, Facebook. I mean, there is a lot less visibility, to your point about personal identifying information.
Correct.
And how that's like businesses need to adjust, right?
Heavily, right? Because they've largely relied upon the big monsters showing up with, boatloads of information and saying, on average, more so than less so, do this and you'll get that. And boom, our data shows you this. But with all that data, the data collection shrinking, people, companies really, really need to begin to think about how do they best use, one, their own data, right? First party data, right? And lots of organizations are starting to develop CDPs, customer data platforms, right?
Oh,
So
cool. What's that?
It's a couple of letters put together, spelled right? It's basically, hi, I am now doing things where I'm taking data from my own information and building a platform to help me do modeling, right? So there is, hi, I'm allowing my clients or users to declare data for a number of different reasons, right? There's all sorts of what is declared data and what is not declared data and right to be forgotten. But when you get declared data, that's the good data you get, right? So you've got first party data, and then you've got, companies are now really beginning to start using, more so than not, pixel tagging and first party
Right.
cookie data collection, right? And if you look at Snap and some of these other companies, they're developing their own AI modeling and things to that nature to inform the advertisers in a better way. And if you're also a publisher in certain ways, you've got to look at how can my second party data, where I have partnerships with organizations, how can that data be melded into this platform? And then, third party data from data aggregators or modeling, and, stuff to such nature. But at the end of the day, you then have a pile of this data, and then companies are really efficient at telling tech people, go get information and data, get it into a platform. And then what are you going to do, right? Organizations really need to, are beginning to really pay attention to the hiring of data scientists, individuals that really understand data modeling, regression modeling, all of the different stuff that's way outside my brainwaves, But when you talk to a guy or a gal over a cup of coffee, and they're sitting there and they're saying, "Hey, we could apply, I don't know, I'm just making this up,
Yeah.
the Fibonacci thing, and then it allows you to figure out where, when these parameters equate, you get to whatever." And when you start to look at other information you have coming out of your analytics, which is targeting and segmentation and understanding how user personas and their decision journey begin to map to or overlay on, like, this isn't data points from a singular point of view in any way, shape, form, linearly discussed. This is layers of data, looked at like this to figure out how you could see a directionally correct path to take.
That hits, yeah, it resonates because it's like it's getting so much more complex. Omnichannel, like integrated marketing, is very much the table stakes for enterprises at this point, and yet attribution's never been more difficult, only getting more with the fact that data is being obfuscated by all these privacy requirements by these platforms. So to your point,
Right.
you've got your own data, and then everything else is pretty much you have to take with a serious grain of salt.
Oh, 100%. Like, and that's where your organizational modeling and your organizational expertise really come into play, right? You need to really be able to create hierarchical needs and have systems that allow you to pivot in ways and give information that benefit you as the company doing the ad buying, or benefit you, the place that's saying, "Hey, ad buyer, you're going to get your best bang for your buck in this direction because we're looking at our audiences coming this way and they dwell in this area and do that." I mean, it was always complicated, but it's definitely elevated the number of iterations and cycles that the exponential complications are there, right?
And to your point, I mean, so many of these larger enterprises have a ton of legacy tech debt when it comes to their data. So you're kind of saying you have to get your data scientists or your agencies, bring them in now to kind of evaluate where you stand and have a future-proof perspective, to audit your data hygiene, your data collection, so that going forward, it's actually going to be useful, so you can make decisions that aren't going to, financially crush your business.
Right. Or not make a decision because your data isn't telling you what to do, and you get sideswiped and pushed right off the road, right? Like, I'm sure a lot of people have spent a billion amount of hours figuring out how to implement their analytics. No, it's like put code on and go. And then you're talking to a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, look, I've got this giant roll-up report. How do I pull the layers of the onion away to understand the implications of the thing that was done, or potential change I may make, or all these other items that aren't just around simple data points like page views and traffic and impressions and click. You really need an individual who loves mathematical problems to figure.
Well, it's two parts, right? Like, that's the one thing that we deal with. We love at our agency is that you've got the two sides of your brain, right? The technical and the creative. A lot of it is storytelling, and how the data science or the agencies that you bring in need to be able to take that information and concoct the story for the C-suite, for the VPs of marketing, for the CMOs. So it's like, if you're talking to a CMO, Chris, like, you need to be able to tell that story of how these different channels are working or not working based on the data.
Well, correct, inferent, but as we touched on earlier, the data and inference of the data is really where you're going to go, because the width of that data band is very different due to the absence of a volume and or data being collected due to country laws, state laws, technology rules, right? Individual preferences, right? it's not the 90s where people are showing up and just being like, oh, look, I'm online, this is great, everybody's the days of like, collecting billions of pounds of data every second are gone, right?
Well, so that, I guess that's my question, is going forward, do you see us moving away from those kind of performance marketing metrics, or is it just getting so complex and the folks that are actually finding solutions for, like, based on the limitations, are the ones that are ultimately going to win these kind of competition, these digital wars, if you will?
I wish I had a crystal ball. I really did.
You don't?
It's a phenomenally amazing question. It really, out of all the complex questions you've asked me, and you've asked me a ton, right? This is the hardest one to answer because every business is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every user base is different. Every partner base is different. Every set of KPI. I mean, like and I don't even know if this is a real word. The dimensionality of the problem is verbose. It's huge, right? So it's not just a bunch of numbers in an Excel chart and a bar chart thing. Like you really, I mean, God, you got to start using scatter plots and all that stuff. All these charts that everybody's like, what do you use that for? And Excel.
Right.
Those are these people that got to start using.
Well, I mean, like, for the visionaries at these enterprises who have to make these tough decisions, it's really tricky because you want to be able to be informed by the data and have that say, 100% that is the right decision. And yet there's never that sort of clarity. You can never completely remove conjecture. It's always going to be that marriage, right, of your gut instincts and what the data is telling you.
I think there's a few things that we could probably throw an account on to help you be more successful, Colin. Right. One, and I usually don't plug our agency on these calls because we're talking about it, but a deliverable we have that I think is one of our best deliverables is our audience persona, report, right? And how we map it to a keyword portfolio towards persona, need state, segmentation, business needs, tagging. Like, that is a really smart collection of information that can be used to make choices, right? Now, that's from a pure SEO point of view. But I say that in the reality that a lot of people for tons of times, oh, wouldn't it be great if the SEO team over here talked to the analytic team over there that maybe had something to do with the paid team over here? Like, the time for that siloing or that separation is really long gone, and the dependency of business success is coming to, like, removing what other obstacles are in between those groups and getting those very smart people to share with each other, right? If you remove the stigma of being in separate groups and then getting them to start talking about things like you just, oh, I think 3, 4. Why do you think 4? 4. Oh, okay, maybe 3.8. I agree, 3.8, right? And you're like, whoa, right? And then they're in there. And then there's a component here where, as an organization, the closer you are in relationship to truly knowing your audience and your end user, the better you'll be able to understand what that data means and how to make it applicable to the needs of that person. Whether it's content creation, publishing, site organization, ad buy, spend, targeting, or creating a profile in which you want somebody to buy into, right? Those metrics of how the site is organized and worked and whom you're selling to, like, those teams really need to come together at some point as well, right? There's a lot of separation between sales team, which have boots on the ground and needs from buyers, versus site business owners, which have, other things occurring in their world as well.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to kind of wrap this all together, this big conversation around data, is that you can't trust third-party data to the extent that you were able to 10, 20 years ago. You need to own your data and have a plan and really focus on collecting as much information as you can about your own audience and their buyer's journey to ultimately inform, because that's your best chance of having data that's usable.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And you gotta hire a person that's going to sit there and think about it, right? Not just collect it. Trust me, the building a container and collecting a thing is a task that a large majority of very smart IT individuals will overcome and be able to help you get it, right? The person that is looking at analyzing, organizing, and creating modeling, right, to then allow you to have a really in-depth conversation is the key to how that data is valuable. Because right now on the opposite side of that, right, everybody's like, AI, and you got 1,001 people saying, I'm going to use AI to create images with me on my, I upload my image and I need 55 images of me either as a knight or as a whatever, and as, I need, but
Santa Claus.
Strawberry butterfly wings, AI generated, boom, right? It's right there, perfect, right?
Yeah.
Here's a case as a business owner where you get to take the shiny ball thing that everybody's talking about and bring the concept of AI into this data modeling and turn it loose and, really figure out what crazy alpha tail extremities this thing takes you into, so that you could then say, okay, we know those are there. And if 25 of these other profiles line up, then maybe that's a thing I got to care about. But here's the meat of my world here, and then stay core, right?
There you go. There's so many technology opportunities when it comes to data. Thank you so much, Chris. This has been another episode of Advice from the Heart with Christopher Hart. My name's Gary Sussman of iPullRank, and we will catch you next episode. See ya.